afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. So this is the first episode of Talk About It with Marvin Lee. And I want to do this one justice, so I'm not doing a teleprompter. I've decided to save my notes because I really want to take my time with this one. And pardon me as I vape, but again, this is going to be quite an episode. Like I said, and I've taken notes with this one because I want to do justice for this episode. So let me say this clearly. I didn't come here to play with this platform. I didn't come here to be safe. Most importantly, I didn't come to be reckless either. But what I did do is I came here to tell the truth, my truth. This space is not for noise. It's not for performance, and it's definitely not for pretending. This is a space where I say things that people feel, but are too afraid to speak. Some of those things have been things that I felt, and I was too afraid to speak. I found my voice on doing that now. So let me be real with you. I'm a gay black man, in case you can't tell, in case you didn't know. And not that alone comes with layers, right? It's layers of expectation, layers of judgment, misunderstanding, and silence. There's silence in families, there's silence in churches, silence in the communities that taught us how to survive. But it's not always about how to be honest. And for a long time, I played my part in that silence, not because I didn't have something to say, but because I understood what it cost to say it. It wasn't that I didn't have anything to say, but I understood the cost of saying it, right? But this is what I've learned. The silence does not protect you, it does not heal you, and most importantly, it doesn't free you at all, right? So now we're going to talk about it. My forehead I'm shining here. You realize I was gleaming like this. But again, this is my truth, so come go along with me as we do talk about it. This platform is about truth. It's not watered down truth. It's not convenient truth, but it's the kind of truth that makes people uncomfortable because it forces you to think, right? So we're going to talk about faith. We're going to talk about identity, and we're going to talk about culture. And along with that, we're also going to talk about, maybe not so much politics, but we're going to talk about pain. We're going to talk about growth. And there are real intersections between all of them. What do we do with those intersections? Do we get stuck? Do we run away? What do we do? Do we turn to go the opposite direction? How do we navigate this space? We're going to talk about all these things. And too many of us have been taught to separate who we are from what we've been told to believe. Now, yeah, I believe in training up a child in the way that they should go. I believe in that. That's scriptural. I believe that. When it comes to certain issues, this is the importance of having spirituality behind the religion, true spirituality. God says that the time is coming when the true worshipers are going to worship in spirit and in truth. And there's a big disconnect with a lot of people that the church is supposed to be reaching. And again, part of that disconnect comes from what we've been taught. But what we've been taught, we're gonna dive into that. Because are you misunderstanding what you're teaching, or are you misinterpreting what you're teaching? And it's in the disconnect where the confusion lives, right? That's where the shame grows. That's where people lose themselves. I know, because I was one of those people. Again, I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to challenge you to think, to question, to reflect, and to confront. Again, let's be honest. We've normalized avoiding hard conversations. We have normalized avoiding hard conversations. We'll shout in comments, we argue in private, and we'll judge from a distance. But none of us take the time to sit down and really talk. That ends here. That's what we're talking about here with Marvin Lee. All right. Now, everything I speak on, it comes from lived experience. It's not theory. It's not secondhand opinions. But walking through things, questioning things, wrestling with things, and coming out on the other side with clarity in the process of working on a major project where I'm going to talk about coming out on top in an upside down world. That's something I'm working on. But again, whether you agree with me or not, or whether you don't, you're welcome here. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to hide, and we're not going to be disrespectful of the process. Because again, growth doesn't happen in hiding, freedom doesn't happen in hiding, and truth definitely doesn't happen in hiding. So if you're ready for real conversations, if you're ready to be challenged, if you're ready to hear deeper than surface level noise, then I invite you to come on and join the conversation with me. Okay. Now, where do I want to start? It's something that doesn't get talked about enough, and when we do talk about it, it's usually being talked about from the outside looking in, right? And if I'm talking about something from the outside looking in, that means that I'm navigating, or I'm that Monday morning quarterback at the water fountain. I'm not in the game. I have no skin in the game. But at the end of the day, while I'm on the outside looking in, why is that? Am I outside looking in because I'm afraid of my truth? But that's another story. Okay. Now, what happens when your identity and your faith feel like they're in conflict? Because I've lived for so long where my identity and my faith have felt like they've been in conflict, and I've been afraid to move forward in the things that I knew God had called and equipped me for, called me to do. Fear, real fear, right? Now, this is not what people say about it, but what it actually feels like to live it. Unless you've been one of those people that actually have lived it, you may not understand this conversation, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a part in the conversation. And all you're getting, get understanding. Try to understand, listen to understand without listening to respond. Now, for me, this was not theoretical. This was and is real life. This is my life. It was about sitting in spaces. It's sitting in those spaces where I was taught to love God. But it felt like I had to hide parts of myself just to be able to do that. So I'm in a space where I'm being taught to love God, but while I'm there, I feel like I have to hide myself in order to do that. And that's not fair. And that's torture. Right? That's torture. And if we're being honest, a lot of us were raised in those environments. And in those very places, these conversations did not exist at all. We had to go along to get along, right? But here we are. We didn't talk about sexuality. We didn't talk about, we didn't question sexuality. We didn't question leadership. We didn't challenge interpretation. We were just taught to go along to get along. We were taught not to question God. Now, how many of you that have children don't want your children? And I'm not speaking about the I pay the cost to be the boss mentality. I'm talking about how many of you love your children, and if you say something to them, how many of you would not welcome questions from your children? And if you would like for your children to ask questions to understand why, because that goes into the training up of a child too, explaining why certain things is. When I get beatings back in the day, my mom told me why I was getting beaten. I understood why I was getting beaten. I didn't understand why I was getting beat to the degree that I was getting beaten, but I'm okay. But the point that I'm making is this. I encourage you to allow questions to be asked about things that are not comfortable. That's the only way that the understanding is going to come. But anyways, because in my day, again, you didn't challenge authority or any of that. You didn't do any of that. You just followed. That's what you were supposed to do. That's what we were taught to do, right? And if you did dare question, you were labeled. You were labeled. What were you labeled as? Is rebellious, a rebelliousness, defiant, a troublemaker, angry, mad, so many different things, right? In words, you were told that you were wrong just for being who you were. Or let me make it personal. I was told that I was wrong just for being who I was, right? And it's not my fault that it's not my fault that I am who I am, right? Now let's talk about what that does to a person, because it does create lots of internal conflict. And again, I know this because I've lived it. And if we're being truthful, I'm still in that. I just manage the conflicts now. It makes you feel like you have to choose between your faith and your identity, like you can't fully exist with both. I can't exist in together, but there's a conflict because of what I've been told, right? Nobody wants to answer hard questions, and that's a place to live in. because now I'm not just dealing with people. I'm dealing with what I believe about God. I'm not just dealing with people. I'm dealing with what I believe about God, which is why it's important for me to have my own individual relationship with God, because I can't base this on what my mom said, and I can't base it on what grandmother said. I can't base it on what my brothers or my sisters said, my aunts, uncles, cousins. This has to be personal for me. It has to be personal for me. And in the process, yes, I do. I start asking questions. I need these questions because I've been asking my whole life, like, am I accepted? Am I wrong? Do I have to change to be loved? All questions that nobody should ever have to ask. And a lot of times, nobody's giving real answers, just opinions, interpretations, just pressure. That's it. And why is that? It's easier for me to give you the things that are chaotic and that are not helpful and that are actually hurtful to you, because I don't know, or I'm afraid to know, or I'm afraid to challenge, I'm afraid to question. I'm just going to go along to get along. Everybody wants to claim the title of a warrior until it comes time to do what warriors have to do. Again, warriors are not born, warriors are built over time through experience. Now, what happens? People are going to do one of three things. This coffee is so. We're either going to suppress who we are to fit what we've been taught. I've done that. I've suppressed myself on more than one occasion, so many different times. Because just going along, get along, trying to fit in. I'm either going to live in the middle, conflicted, silent, and trying to survive both worlds. Because again, that's that survival mechanism, or that defense mechanism that I use, that survival. As I'm going along to get along, I'm just trying to do anything and everything that I can to survive both worlds, because I want to come out on top, and I want to be. I want to experience some semblance of not being torn up, chewed up, spit out, right? And it's in the middle place where a lot of people are. And the truth is that space is exhausting, very exhausting. I know this because I've been there so many times. Because you constantly have to edit yourself, whether it's in conversations, whether it's in relationships. And watch this, even in prayer. As I'm working on the relationship with God, I'm editing myself based on what other people have said, and I'm talking to the one who created me in his image and in his likeness, and who has said to me, I've called you as you are, knows me by my name, knew me in my mother's womb. Even before the foundation of this world, he knew me then. But I find myself editing myself even in his presence. That's what I do. Shall I say that's what I've been taught, right? Now, again, that's not freedom. So the real question at that point becomes, who told you that you had to choose? Who told you that you had to choose? And I'll say this, and I'm not here to tear down faith, and I'm not here to tell anybody what to believe. But what I am here to say is that we have to start having honest conversations about what people are actually experiencing, because if nobody's actually having an honest conversation about what we are experiencing, then we're still cutting our noses off to spite our faces, and we're not making real strides in this conversation, and we're not helping anybody. In fact, we become some same people that are causing more harm than help. We're causing more hate than love. We're causing than unity. That's just what we do. And it's not just what sounds good. It's not what's just been repeated, but it's real. Now, there are people watching right now who have never heard what I'm saying being said out loud. And if there are people who have heard it being said out loud, I can promise you there's probably been retribution for it. There's been retaliation. There's been all kinds of things. And maybe this is the first time that these people have been felt seen. And this is a safe space. You'll be able to flex some of those things. Again, it's uncomfortable, and the thing that makes me uncomfortable is the thing that I have to be willing to talk about. I'm willing to lead the conversation. I'm willing to share my truth. If I can make your life better, what good am I? I'm not seeking success. I'm seeking impact. I'm significant. Success doesn't happen because of you, excuse me. Success doesn't happen to you or for you. It happens because of you. And I want to talk about insignificance. That comes from when you're not afraid to manage that conflict, that internal conflict. I know that I'm gonna be someone that matters in sales life, because now I learned how to matter in my own life. Now, piece by piece, this conversation is gonna occur piece by piece, without performance, without fear, and without pretending that we have to have all the answers. And I'm definitely not gonna pretend that I have all the answers, because I don't. But what I do know is that I love the Lord with my whole heart, my whole mind, my soul, and I know He loves me too. And I'm so tired of having to compartmentalize who I am based on where I am. If I cannot show up as my authentic self always in all things, I would rather not be there. That's me. And let me get back to my notes, y'all. Again, the goal is not to win an argument. It's to understand the truth. And now we're going to go just a little bit deeper with this. This is where the conversation usually gets uncomfortable, right? We're going to talk about scripture, and we're going to talk about the interpretation of the scripture. Because again, a lot of talk, it's not just about what the text says, but it's about how it's explained, or how it's been explained to us. And in those explanations, they didn't come out of thin air. They came through people, through culture, through tradition, and through leadership. And the truth is, when we look at that, the truth is that not all interpretation has been neutral. Not all interpretation has been neutral. Some interpretations are shaped by time periods. It's shaped by power structures. It's shaped by cultural norms. I can shape it to fit the narrative if I am not willing to be honest about the situation. So when we hear something taught as absolute, because I grew up in church and I've heard a lot of things, even to this day, I'm still in church. I found a great church that I'm a member of, but I find myself sometimes in that space, even I'm being there, I'm connected with, find myself even in my church drinking in that space because I don't want to gallon the number, and I'm not going here. I'm not leaving. I'm not a problem. I'm just here to live my truth, to walk, to live in my honesty, to settle it. That's it. Now, when I do hear something that's being taught as absolute, I have to ask myself: is this text? Is this the text, or is this somebody's interpretation of the text? And again, let me be clear, because as I said, I'm not here to discredit anybody's faith. I'm not here to even discredit faith, period, right? I'm not here to dismiss scripture. I love scripture. I read scripture. It says to study. God says to us in the word to study to show yourself approved, a workman who needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. And it's amazing that we put emphasis on the word rightly, or that the word is even there, because the implication is that if I can rightly divide something, then that means that I can wrongly divide something. Wrongly dividing the word of truth means there is misinterpretation leading to misinformation. Again, and when you don't know what to think for yourself, or when you don't know how to think for yourself, you inherit those beliefs. You inherit those beliefs without understanding them. And when you don't understand them, it's like being handed a loaded gun, and you just start aiming, or not even aiming. You just start firing in whatever direction you feel like firing in. And the next thing you know, you're casualties, mass casualties, because of your carelessness. And again, we see that does become dangerous, because now it's your identity, your self-worth, and your relationship with God all are being filtered through somebody else's lens, and you don't even realize it. So that's why I've always been careful to stay committed to myself and true what I believe, even for the sake of being called defiant or rebellious. No, I was being true to myself, because I know it feels right. And when I say what feels right, I'm not talking about a fleshly thing. I'm talking about spiritually speaking. I know, and I have always known what felt right for me spiritually speaking, even in the face of being told that God doesn't love me. I'm a sinner. I'm going to hell. There's a special place reserved in hell for people like me. I've so many different things, but I managed to find my trust, my truth, and my faith all centered and docked in God, Jesus Christ. And I kept moving. I haven't stopped. Uh, and I've asked a lot of questions that became, who have I ever been given permission to wrestle with what I've been taught? And I can't ask that question anymore. I can no longer afford to ask, am I given permission to wrestle with what I've been taught? I'm just not wrestling with it. I'm not even fighting it. I will dissect it. I don't need permission to stand in my truth. I don't need permission to seek out truth. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask questions. That's what we all should be doing, asking questions, right? And there's no harm in asking questions. We've been told for so many times. Again, I come from a household. You don't question God. You don't. And if I can't question God, then how do I grow in my walk with Him? How do I grow in faith with Him? That's a crazy relationship to have. Like, why would I want to be friends with somebody that I can't ask questions to? That means you don't want me to know anything about you. And if you want me to know anything about you, that's going to hinder and hamper the relationship. Now, I'm only getting an aspect, a version of you. That's surface level. How can two walk together except they be agreed? If I can't even ask you questions, how do I know what we're agreeing on? There's always going to be a disagreement because I can't even ask questions, right? And and I should be able to ask these things without being shut down. I should be able to explore scripture without being labeled. I shouldn't be afraid of exploring scripture only for somebody else to tell me what their understanding, what their interpretation of my understanding is or should be. Again, I don't want to sound combative. I don't want to sound like I'm aggressive or fussing or fighting. I want to do justice to this topic because this has been my life. This is my life. Faith that cannot be questioned. It's not faith. It often becomes control. Faith can be explored, even though we've been taught that it can't be explored. Faith can be explored. It can become personal. It can become real. It can become grounded, and it can certainly become alive. It's a lie, and I didn't know how I was going to approach the topic because, again, this is my truth, and I'm not. Two things can be true at the same time. I courageously confront this conversation, but I also feel fear while having the conversation. But I also don't care what comes after the conversation. I'm not going to be trapped by future tripping about who's going to say what and how this is going to be perceived and what if my pastor sees this and what if my mama knows this. Well, I don't care. I don't care. I just need to be free for me. And I'm going to stand in my power. I'm going to stand in my truth. And I'm going to realize that I'm going to live my purpose, right? So now what we're going to do is I'm not here to tear anything down, but I'm here to examine things. Because if something is true, it can withstand being questioned. If a thing is really true, then it is subject to and it can withstand being questioned. Because the truth needs no proof. I oftentimes say this. The truth needs no proof, and a lie doesn't care who tells it. And if the truth can't be questioned, then maybe it was never the truth to begin with. If the truth can't be questioned, then maybe it was never the truth to begin with. So in my story, I'm going to bring this out of theory into something that's real. Because what I'm talking about, I didn't just study it. I've lived it. I'm living it. And what I'm about to talk about now, this really happened to me. This is my story. And this was in 1998. February of 1998, as a matter of fact. February, late January, February, or early January, February. I remember going to a church for what was called a deliverance service. I didn't fully understand what it was, and I didn't fully understand why I was there, but I knew something didn't feel right. I knew something did not feel right. I was brought before the church in front of people, exposed. And the purpose of the moment was to purge something out of me. And if you're from a Pentecostal background, you know what I'm talking about. Deliverance service. In white evangelical circles, white evangelical services or circles, they call it praying with the game. In the black circle, in the Pentecostal movement, the deliverance services. And I was supposed to be delivering this sexual spirit. Something that the church believed shouldn't be there with me. Now imagine being in a space that's supposed to represent that. Feeling like you're the problem. Because what followed after that is confusion. Deep confusion. Lasting confusion. I'm emotional now even thinking about it because it's part of my story. It happened. After this service, and this is why I'm not too keen and too quick to let just anybody pray for me or lay hands on me or engage in certain atmospheres, because energy transfer is real. It is real. This deliverance service took place on a Friday night. The next day was Saturday, and the following day was Sunday. This happened in Columbus, Georgia, with a bus ride from South Carolina to Columbus, Georgia, with my sister. And I remember on the bus ride back, we finally got back to South Carolina Sunday night. Well, it was Sunday day. We got back Sunday night. Let's just say I ended up being escorted to a mental hospital with a sheriff's deputy. And I was in a mental hospital for a whole month. Hospitalized, heavily medicated. And I was told that I would need those medications for the rest of my life. And come to find out, of the 3 medications I was taking, Cogentin, Haldol, and Zyprexa, 2 of those medications, I think it was the Haldol and the Cogentin. I later saw a news report that there could be an adverse reaction and it could lead to death, right? So the enemy's been chasing me for a long time. So I'm standing in a space where I'm supposed to be safe with God and about God, right? And something happened. And I try not to think back on that period of my life. And when I do, it's okay. I've learned how to connect with that and not be consumed by it. It hurt then, and it hurts now. And it's not that I haven't healed from it. To get emotional behind the thing doesn't mean I haven't healed from it. It just means I still remember it. And I have emotions, and I still have feelings. And I remember being in the hospital and being heavily sedated and heavily medicated and being told when I got out that I need the medications for the rest of my life, that I wouldn't be able to enjoy simple things like caffeines and sweets and things I love, like my Pepsis and honey buns and Snickers bars and stuff like that. And I was angry. I was angry. I was angry at my family, angry at my sister. I was angry at the situation. I was angry at what I felt like. I was just angry about the whole situation because I felt like I was no longer in control of my life and somebody else had that. But then something happened. I held on to a scripture that I know and I've always known, from Isaiah 26:3. Because I had even gotten to the point I couldn't sing. I'd open my mouth to sing and I couldn't sing. I was depressed. I mean, just nothing was right. And I'm giving you the abbreviated version of the story because there was a lot more that happened that I really won't go into. But I remember Isaiah 26:3, I will keep thee in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on me. And I remember having a conversation with God, and I said to him, God, this is not me. I don't like how I feel. And you said you would keep me in perfect peace if my mind was stayed on you. So see, this has always been personal to me, right? I didn't think this podcast would be that heavy, this hectic, but anyways. And in that moment when I said that to God, I had that prayer, I prayed that prayer. I felt led. I felt led to do something that I hadn't said to anybody else, and I wasn't going to say to anybody else because I already knew what the outcome would be. And there would be more trouble on top of what I was already experiencing, what I was already feeling, because at this point in my life, somebody else wants to be in control of my life, right? But in after praying that prayer, I heard God say to flush that medication down the toilet. And I did. I did. And again, I didn't say anything to anybody because I knew what the reaction would be. And in that moment, what I can tell you is that it had to be about my relationship with God. It had to be my trust for God. It had to know that this is not based on what somebody's telling me. It's based on what I'm living, right? Everything that I was told that I wouldn't be able to do, I've been doing it since 1998. Everything that I was told that I would no longer be able to have or to eat or whatever, I indulge, and I have since 1998. I enjoy my life fully, and I have peace. Not because everything made sense, but because I had to come to my own understanding of God, of truth. Not anybody else's perceived truth, my truth. I had to come to that understanding. And then I also had to come to an understanding with myself. And that's why this conversation matters. So now the question is, where do we go from here? Because we've talked about a lot. We've talked about the silence. We've talked about the identity. We've talked about faith. We've talked about church. We've talked about interpretation. And I shared just a piece of my story. I didn't go deep into it, but I shared a piece of my story enough for you to know how deeply personal this is for me. But none of that matters if it doesn't lead somewhere. None of that matters if it doesn't lead somewhere. So where do we go from here? First, we start with honesty. Honesty with ourselves. Not the version of ourselves that we want other people to see, but the version of ourselves that we present to people. And it's not the version of ourselves that's been shaped by expectations, but give people the real version. Let people see the real version. This is the real version of me. The real me that's been in conflict with my faith, had been prior to this period of my life, in conflict with there's a conflict between my faith and my identity. Because you can't heal what you won't acknowledge. Next, we're going to give ourselves permission to think. We're going to give ourselves permission to think, to question, to explore, and even to wrestle. If that's what you want to do, give yourself permission for it. Not out of rebellion, but out of a desire for understanding. True desire for understanding, because real faith shouldn't be fragile. And the last thing we have to do is we have to let go of fear. The fear of judgment, the fear of rejection, the fear of being misunderstood. Because fear will keep you silent long after you've outgrown the silence. And finally, we talk. We have to have real conversations. Not surface level exchanges, but honest dialogue. But the truth is, there are people out here trying to figure this out. Just like you, just like me. And maybe they've never had a safe space to say it out loud. That's what this is. This is a space for truth, a space for conversation, a space where you don't have to hide to belong. Not because we all agree, but because we're all willing to be honest. And as we move forward, we're going to have to keep having these conversations. We'll bring in different perspectives, different voices, different experiences, because no single person has all the answers. I can say that boldly, that no single person has all the answers. But together we can get closer to understanding. Whether you're questioning, whether you're confident, whether you're somewhere in between, you're not alone. You're not alone. And the conversation is just getting started. With that being said, thank y'all for being on this episode, joining this episode with me, and for listening. I hope this will give somebody the courage to have the conversation. If you're struggling, feel free, send a message, comment, whatever. I'm happy to talk to anybody. Because I don't want anybody to have to feel what I felt. And we didn't get into the ways that I began coping by using substances. I don't want that for anybody. Again, this is Talk About It with Marvin Lee. This is your safe space to speak up and to be heard. Thank you guys again. I will see you guys next week.